The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone and welcome to TSG's What's New in Dynamics NAV 2018. Firstly, just a little bit of housekeeping, just so as we know you can hear us, if you could just press the raise hand in the window so that we can see that everybody's online and okay, please. And okay, that seems fine. My name is Bill Tomlinson and at TSG.
Hi, good morning. My name's Ian Wilson.
Hi, my name's Paul Dennis. Welcome to the webinar.
Okay, thanks guys. Next slide. My name is Bill Tomlinson, Senior Microsoft Dynamics Specialist here at TSG. So I'm joined by my colleagues Paul and Ian will be leading us through the demonstration along the way. Together, we have got over 60 years experience in using NAV, both at home and abroad, and we bring with us a lot of technical experience to be able to answer any particular questions that you may have, hopefully, as we go through the webinar. The agenda that Ian will be taking us through will include a lot of new features in the new 2018, including some extended artificial intelligence, which is quite interesting, and some new and exciting web services making data entry much quicker. Before we go on to that, Microsoft quite often mention digital transformation quite a lot. So I'd like to just take you through very briefly an explanation of how that's going within the new product set. First, we have the familiar environment level that we're all used to. We have Windows 10, SQL Server, where all our data is stored, and now the ever-increasing option of hosting on Azure platform rather than on-premise. The functional level is indeed the Microsoft Dynamics stack, particularly NAV. Lots of functionality, all the traditional ERP solutions, manufacturing, warehousing, a lot of advanced features in that. So that gives us our functional level. The most exciting part coming up is the integration within the communication level. This allows us to have better integration with the CRM, a lot of good document management within the SharePoint environment of Office 365, Outlook integration, Flow, Teams, etc. Even integration to the later IP phone cloud systems, further improving any communication and data transfer and making people aware of what's going on. This, in effect, provides us with a great business vertical level, allowing us to provide a total solution for many different diverse industries, from retail to government. In addition to that, here at TSG, we can further enhance that evolutionary process by adding better interfaces to the Dynamics CRM, indeed those coming out with the later versions of Dynamics NAV. And we have a new product called Yavium Pro Batch, which is further enhancing product tracking within the distribution and warehousing and manufacturing businesses. We have quite a few nice products handling document management. We have Spindle, particularly good at distributing various documents to individuals or groups of people, such as statements and invoices. Document captures, the Cortinia version of document capture is quite exciting, as this reduces time and effort in entering purchase invoices and matching them to your purchase orders. And we also have a Concur expense management solution. Reporting, ever important reporting, and that's there's a bit of a revolution going on in reporting, as we know, with the introduction of Power BI. We also provide ClickSense advanced three-dimensional reporting and very visual reporting, and of course NAV comes with the basic standard object reports, but we are doing a lot of work with the professional and now the new enhanced version of object reports, giving lots of easy access information within the whole system. I've already mentioned Office 365. There's no end to this expansion in this area. Integration with Outlook's really useful, and the new flow techniques, handling workflow within Office 365 is very advanced. Not forgetting web, we have two offerings within web services. Tinks IT, which is a very dynamic interface between Dynamics NAV and any Magento site, giving great functionality to retailers or e-tailers as they're becoming more known. And we have another option from K e-commerce, which does a complete end-to-end from a web design template right through to the integration to the Microsoft Dynamics NAV, allowing you to manage your content management of websites from the NAV itself. And finally, we also have our own handheld unit for warehouse management, for handling putaways, picking, etc. So with that, we have a lot of expertise and people involved in many projects, providing these extensions to the later versions of Dynamics NAV as we go along. Okay, so it's going to be over to Ian. Please feel free to ask any questions during the presentation by using the questions box in the right window. If we cannot answer straight away, we'll make a note of those and give an answer back in more detail at the end of the session. Also, please check out our website when you can. We have many other webinars going on. One of the big favorites is GDPR, as that's a hot topic this year. So please feel free to register on those when you can. Thank you. Over to you, Ian.
Thank you, Bill. Thanks for that introduction of where NAV sits in the Microsoft ecosystem, and especially with the add-on products that bring some rich functionality to NAV in particular, with TSG's expertise. Excuse me. So what we're going to start with today is, for those of you who've been on the webinars that I've run before, I always start here. It's what's new, but is not going to be in the demos today, the live demos, basically because it's improvements to the platform, and it's not really something you can show, but nevertheless it's worth mentioning. I'll just go through, picked out a few of them to discuss on this slide. We've got there's a new thread scheduling engine within the system, and this basically means better performance. Microsoft have been working since 2016, 2017 and 2018, and each version is a lot more efficient at processing your business data and your business rules. And that's the same with 2018. I've done a bit of benchmarking against 2017, and 2018 does bring some good performance enhancements to the table. The product now has a set of APIs. There's 44 at launch, with 14 more coming soon. And these have really been inspired by the competition, if you like, because products like Sage and QuickBooks, etc., have APIs. And what's that really good for? It just allows integration in a lot more standard way for other products that you might be running. NAV is exposing its business logic in a standard way called APIs. For technical guys on the call, they are exposed as standard web services, as I say, and they're also bound actions as well, so it allows things like deep inserting, so you can import multiple records in one call. So if you have a lot of transactions to process, you're not having to make continuous calls to the web service or the API. You can process multiple records in one call, as I say. Following on from the thread scheduling, NAV 2018 has got support for SQL Server 2017, as you'd expect. And why that's important, again, it's for performance. Each version of SQL Server that Microsoft release, they say that running on even the same hardware, you know, you're getting between a 20 and 30% performance improvement just by upgrading the version of SQL Server. So taking into account the performance improvements with the thread scheduling engine and the SQL Server 2017 support, then that makes NAV 2018 the fastest version of NAV that I've ever used. Recently, Microsoft just published that they're supporting the Making Tax Digital initiative by April 2019. The government are starting with VAT reporting digitally. And of course, the NAV 2018 they've committed to supporting that for the deadline of April. That might be important because I know some of the people on the call are running older versions of NAV. And on the 9th of January, NAV 2013 and 2013 R2 fell out of mainstream support. That ended on that date. It's now in extended support, but extended support period for those versions only gives you bug fixes, so you won't be getting access to the new features like the support for Making Tax Digital. So that might be one reason why you want to consider upgrading to NAV 2018. The second last point there is company display name property. Might seem like a little thing, but we all do testing on our data and developments and things like that. And the usual process of spinning up a demonstration or a test company is you copy your live into test, and then you rename it and you wait half an hour while that process completes. So when people log in, it's clear to them they're in the test database and they're not processing live transactions in test. But now there's this display name property, and you can just change that to indicate that you're in the test company, and that just takes 1 second now. So that's a big change there. And now there's new integration with Flow, which we're not going to have time to look at today. And there's a new Power BI report pack. But if you look back at the 2016, 2017 webinars, you'll see some of that. They're available on tsg.com. Okay, so I think that's enough of the PowerPoint slides now. I'm going to switch over to some live demos. It's what everybody's come to see after all. Just bear with me. So we'll start with the Windows client, and we're going to start with, as Bill picked out at the beginning of the call, the extended artificial intelligence. This is Microsoft's push to extend the use of their machine learning Azure services, or the brand of it is the Container Intelligence Suite, and they're continuing to add new parts of that, or giving new capabilities that the machine learning services bring. They're adding new things into NAV. So let's have a look at some of the new things. If I go to customers and use our friends at the Canon Group, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, it just looks like a standard customer card. And we have a picture now of the contact. But if I go into the contacts, and if I go to Mr. Andy Teal, you can see here there's no picture. I'll just close up the communication. And in his profile questionnaire, there's nothing, there's no questions. So we haven't gathered any intelligence about this guy who we're trading with quite regularly. Where the machine learning comes in is if I click import and bring his photograph into the card, you'll see here I get a note, a notification popping up saying good work. You can view the results of the image analysis on the profile questionnaire. So I'll just say got it. And you can see what the image analyzer has done. It's sent the image off to the machine learning service on Azure, and it's analyzed what it thinks is in the picture, and it's come back and it's made some good guesses here. It's detected the age at 33, and it's detected the gender of male. That looks pretty good to me, so I'm happy with that. I can close that off now. If I have a look at one of the other colleagues who works for the Canon Group, if I have a look at Stephanie, you can see here that we already have some stuff in her questionnaire, and we know she's a female already. But let's have a look. I'm just going to import her picture. And you can see there it's added the detected age, but it hasn't overwritten the female attribute that we already had on there. So that's where the system helps you with pictures of your contacts, and it also has some help with similar type of recognition in items. If I go to make a new item, so it's a retail item, Tokyo guest chair, and green. I'm sure you've all seen the Tokyo guest chair blue quite a number of times in demonstrations. You can see here there's no item category code, there's nothing, there's no picture, there's no information at all. So if I just click import, as I did with the pictures of the people, and I click import green, you'll see that it brings up some recommendations for what it suggests you do with the picture attributes that it's already done the analysis for. We can see we can blacklist attributes, so if the system's are continually getting things wrong, if you're processing similar items, then you can blacklist things as well. And here you can see the action to perform. We can put it to seat, but I'm going to tell it to ignore that, but the actions are we can use as category attributes or add to blacklist. But here it's made a good guess. It's furniture users category. I'm happy with that. I'll click that. And you can see here, because the item category code furniture has come in, it's also brought in the standard attributes that would go with a chair, and it's had a good guess at the depth and height. Wasn't quite sure of the color, but of course I just changed that in Photoshop. I'm not really sure what color that is myself either. So yeah, that's the it's just a little nice help when you're entering new items and importing pictures of your contacts. So the next thing we're going to look at is the easier customization of the user interface. I'm sure you all have seen the role center quite a number of times, and we can do the standard here, customize this page, and we can move the items around, etc. But let's have a look at some of the extensions to what Microsoft have done for this here. If I just go back to the Canon group, you can see here in the address and contact fast tab, I've got telex and fax number. And who uses those these days? You know, telex is well into the history books, and fax numbers are going the same way as well. So how to make changes to the page, and this is usually something where you'd involve TSG or your NAV partner, but Microsoft are giving you the ability to do a lot of this type of customization yourself now. So I'm in the web client. I'm going to go to the same customer, bring the Canon group up, and now I can see I have this, we have a new button here which is saying open the designer. If I just click on that, you'll see it just starts with this toast come up at the top. It's telling me I'm designing the customer card, which is fine. I can stop designing and I can click more. But if I just go to this, the information tab here, I can see the telex number. And you can see here this, what Microsoft are referring to as the jewel, this purple triangle. I can click that and I can just say remove. And while I'm at it, I'm going to remove the fax number as well. But there's one thing one of my colleagues has asked me about. He said, on the general tab, I need the search name as well, because we use a different criteria for searching for people. Can you please add that? I can. If you can click on more, and you can see here I can click the field. And this just gives me a list of all the fields which are available on the customer record. And you can see here I've got search name, and I can just drag and drop that onto the form there, and it comes in. There's probably a long list of fields in the table where you can see whether they're placed already, so you can see if they're already on the form or not. You can view the changes you've made in different formats, so you can look at the tablet layout. You can also look at the mobile phone layout as well, because there's the support for the NAV Universal app is still being worked on with Microsoft. And once I've finished and I'm happy with my layout, I can click on Stop Designing. And this now, it's going to write for us an extension. If you were listening to the webinar or been keeping up with NAV since last year, you were aware that Microsoft introduced a new way to make changes to the core system by using extensions. So instead of TSG and NAV partners changing the code that Microsoft deliver, they give us this extension ability. And yeah, I'm just going to call this TSG customer card. Publisher TSG, and I can choose to download the code if I want to, but in this scenario it's not really something we're going to be looking at. So I'll just click Save. And now let's have a look at the address and contact tab. You can see now that the fax and the telex number has gone, which is all well and good because there's never any information in them these days. But here's my search name. That's also in the general tab. The good thing about what I've just done is that is, if I just close this customer card and reopen it in the Windows client, you'll see that I now have the search name and also the fax and telex number have disappeared there. So the changes you make in using the web client, like we just looked at, they are rendered on the Windows client, the web client, on the phone and the tablet as well. So you just have to make the changes in one place. Now, I mentioned extensions. If I just go to here, you can see that there's a lot here already, and you can see the one I just created, the TSG customer card. And if I just uninstall that, then those changes that I've made, i.e. removing the telex and fax numbers and adding the search name to the customer card, those changes will be undone. So you can play around with this, and it's easy to undo them if you decide to stop using them. Okay. Next thing we're going to look at is some of the extended HR capabilities. I've got a question which probably would be answered yes by most everybody on the webinar, that how many of you have your employees set up as vendors to enable you to reimburse them for expense claims? I know all the times I've used NAV, that's always been the way that we've done it, and I know a lot of our customers have that as well. So Microsoft have listened to this, and they've kind of agreed with everybody that this is a bit of a silly way to do it. So I'm just going to have a look at employees. We'll have a look at Annette Hill. Actually, before I do that, I'm just going to go to a payment journal, and just you're probably all familiar with this suggest vendor payments functionality that will look at any transactions that need paying. But now that's been extended with suggest employee payments. It's similar functionality. It just looks at things that have been posted, usually using a general journal. And then it will suggest the payments to the employees. And what happens when that's completed? As I say, if we look at Annette Hill, processed some data already, and you can see now that we have a ledger entries on the employees. And if we open it, you can see it's the employee ledger entry. And you can see here that I made a payment to Annette for 55 quid. And there's an entry number, and just as you can with any ledgers, you can navigate and look at all of the entries that are made. So we can look at what GL entries were made for this, so you can see that we've got the £55 and the balancing account and everything. So that's really nice. And it will stop you having to process expenses in some weird and wonderful way that everybody does it slightly differently. But you can see the direction Microsoft are moving in with this functionality. One of the other things that people ask about is payroll a lot, but I still have no indication that Microsoft are planning on producing a payroll module for the UK, and that's probably, that last bit of that sentence is the reason why, because don't forget NAV's worldwide, and every jurisdiction has different rules and regulations for payrolls, so it would be pretty nightmarish for them to try and maintain. But what they're doing is, I've just set up a different journal batch here. And if I just go into the edit the journal, you can see here that there's an import payroll transactions button now. And it does work now. If I just choose this file here, that is a sample file, and click open, you'll see that it brings in it's quite a small file, but it just brings in those transactions. It says the payroll transactions are imported, and you can see here I've just got some money, 650, coming out of the savings account, and it's being put into the construction labor costs. The good news is that this is now in the system. The bad news is that the QuickBooks is more for the American and Canadian market, but I'll be amazed if support for the Pegasus and Sage payrolls and the like isn't in the system very soon. Okay, some other time-saving things. I'll just go back here. Just make a new sales order. And again, I'll use our friends at the Canon Group. Now, if I order something that's not in stock, what usually happens is that you need some, it depends if you're using order tracking and that type of stuff, or requisition worksheet, but sometimes you might have an urgent need to fulfill an order. So I know I've got this computer, I don't have any, and my customer wants 5. So I've got a note popped up on the top telling me the available inventories lower than what the customer wants. Well, I can go to actions now, and there's a new action saying create purchase documents, and I can click that, and I can just create a purchase order directly from this sales order. So I'll just do a bit of processing here. It'll just work out the demand and who the vendor is for the item, etc. And then I click OK. And there I am now in the purchase order for replenishing the supply of those 5 computers, and it's linked to the sales order as well. Obviously, you might not want your sales team just making purchase orders ad hoc like this, but of course we have the approval workflow that's in the system now. That was introduced a couple of versions ago, so you can give your staff the freedom to make the purchase orders where necessary, but still have the control by the approval workflow. Okay, the next thing, you've noticed those pop-ups quite a bit. I've mentioned them a couple of times, and on the role center now we have something called user tasks. You can see here there's a new tile, and it's my user tasks. If I click on that, we can see here that I've put in one task saying review all credit limits, and let's have a look at the detail behind here. Let's make this a little bit bigger. So you can see here I've put the subject, review all credit limits, and a bit of a text description. Please review all the customer credit limits and monitor the exposure risk. And we've got a status, when it's due, what percentage is complete, the start date, priority. And then also I have here link. You can put a link on the task, and link into page 22, which is the customer list. So if I go to the task item, it just takes me to the customer list, and I've got my credit limits, which I can review against the balance. So these tasks are system-wide. You can track overdue dates and that type of information, and also track the percentage completed of them. You can either use them as a notepad for yourself, or you can assign the user tasks to one of your colleagues. So that's quite a good time saver, and it just lets you keep track of what's going on within the business. Okay, so the next thing we're going to look at is something called dimension filters. If you're using a modern version of NAV, you're probably already using dimensions to some extent. And they're great for when you've worked out what you want to take into your board meetings and what your management information looks like. But then one of your colleagues asks you a question, hey, can you just give me this particular figure, or just answer me this question? And the usual thing you'd have to do is, you go, okay, I'll make an analysis view and I'll work it out, and it just takes me half an hour and I'm only ever going to use it once, so it was a bit of a waste of time, but here's the answer. But what you can do now in the chart of accounts, for example, if I go down to my sales, my income statement, and just have a look over here, you can see, as normal, I've just got all of my sales in one bucket here. And if I go to the Navigate tab in Dimensions now, directly on the chart of accounts, I can click here, Set a Dimension Filter, and I can just apply filters directly to this view. So if I just want to have a look at my European North but non-EU, and click OK, and just go back down to my income, you can see that my numbers are now filtered by the filter that I just applied in the dimension filter. So that's just really quick. It's 2 seconds to answer that question. Colleague wants to know how sales are doing in Europe, but not EU countries. It's that quick just to apply that filter without having to go into analysis views and all that type of stuff. It's really quick. Okay, continuing the theme of making things nice and quick. I'm going to go to customers. I'm going to enter a new customer. Choose a domestic customer. And we're going to start selling to TSG Limited. Very nice. So we can see here now on the address and contact card, there's this lookup address from postcode. If I click on that, I can type in NE12 ATT, and then I can click OK, and it just goes off to a web service and brings back all of the addresses which match that postcode. And you can see here's TSG's head office. Click OK, and that fills in the address for me. So really quick. It's obviously we're all used to using these on websites these days, and particularly for people who run telesales operations, or you gather a lot of new customers regularly, then this is a big time saver. Not only is it rapid entry, but of course the formatting of the address is per the post office's preferred format as well. You can either click like I just did here and just look for a postcode, or you can type a delivery point in. So if I just type in number 1, it'll just fill it in without giving me the list, because there's only one address matches. Or I can just start typing the address. You don't even have to pop this this little requester up. It will just start filling in the address by you typing in the postcode. So really quick, really rapid, accurate data. And yeah, it's all from a web service from a third party that Microsoft have partnered with, and it's exclusive to the UK one at the moment. I guess that's because we have a tight definition of postcodes, where other countries not necessarily as accurate as us. But yeah, that's exclusive to the UK version. Similarly, if I go to vendors and add a new vendor, and if I just say some company here, we've got here now the VAT registration number. If I type in a valid VAT registration number, and press return, the system now has gone and talked to the official registration of companies database, and it said the VAT registration number is valid. Do you want us to update the name? And if I say yes, you can see that the number I've used is Microsoft's UK or British Isles number. So yeah, that's really good for keeping your accounts accurate and up to date, making sure you have the right names for your vendors. Okay, I'm just going to go back to the web client now and show you some improvements to that. Before, if we wanted to change role within the web client, you could see that we had to go to the profile, click My Settings, and indeed you could change your role center that you wanted to look at quite easily. But at this point, clicking OK, I would be told, okay, we've changed your settings. Please log out and log back in again to make the changes take effect. Because you know, we all do hybrid jobs, and sometimes we want to go into the accounting role, sometimes business manager, sometimes sales order processor, etc. But now if I click OK, the system will just refresh the page and it will load me directly into the accountant's role without me having to log out and log back in. I'll just switch back to the business manager role. And the last thing that we're going to look at today, because I see time's running short, is there's a new report viewer. The web client now works in all modern browsers. So we're talking about Internet Explorer still, Microsoft Edge, Firefox, Chrome, and Safari on macOS. And previously, the previewing of reports only worked in Internet Explorer. So I know I've done it myself. I've thought, yeah, I think I've set the filters on this report correctly, send it to the printer, and then you wait 5 minutes for the pages to come out, and you look and you think, drat, I didn't set those filters correctly. So what we can do now is, if I just have a look at the income statement, for example, and put in some filters, and you can see now we have a preview button. And this is using a new control that Microsoft have published, which I said works across all browsers. And you can see here it's a lot nicer than the old one that was in the previous version. I can fit the page to the width, I can fit to the whole page, I can zoom in and out, I can click the hand, I can pan the report and check everything's right before committing it to print. You can also print directly from here, or you can download as well. And if it's multi-page, you can go to next page and previous page. So that's just a bit of a time save of when you're wanting to print reports. As I said, you can check that the filters you set are correct before actually committing it to paper. Okay, so I think we're approaching the time for the question and answer session, and I think my colleagues have a couple of questions from the audience. Just 1 second.
Yep. Hi, Ian. Thanks very much for that. Very, very useful. We have a question from one of our attendees. Any functionality around credit control and keeping track of calls and promises? How do you record my checks in the post?
Yeah, my checks in the post are always a favorite one. The credit control functionality is it's not fantastic in NAV, I have to agree, but of course there are against each. Let's just have a look at the against your customers. It's usually credit controlling. If I click on edit, we can always see, we can always edit notes. We can add notes against anybody. And also these notes are system wide. So you can add notes against customers, or you can add notes against sales invoices that you're chasing to be paid. And they can be visible by all of your colleagues. If you have a particular problem with your customers being bad payers, then we recommend a fantastic add-on from the same people who make Spindle, and it's called Credit Hound. And that gives you, I refer to it as a credit control cockpit, and yeah, it just has everything there about producing reminders and dunning letters, they used to be called, that type of stuff. So if you've got a particular problem with your customers not paying you, and let's face it, who doesn't have that from time to time, then it's probably be worth speaking to your TSG account manager and ask him to set up a demo of Credit Hound.
Cool. Okay, I'm sure we're going to get lots more questions coming in before we get some more from the attendees. I've got one for you, Ian. So thanks for running through that functionality. Really, really useful. Surely there must be an increase in price from Microsoft for all of this, isn't there?
It's a good question, and I'm happy to say that no, there isn't. As long as you're on the Microsoft enhancement plan and that's current and you're up to date with that, then as always, the software is essentially free to you. The charge that you would incur would be in the professional services for TSG to implement it for you, to implement the upgrade. But of course, if you're on 2017 or 2016, then that process is considerably quicker, because this is the focus Microsoft have had the last few releases to make upgrading simpler. But if you're on 2013 and older, then of course that process is a little more complicated, so there's a few more days in the project to do the upgrade. But no, I'm happy to say essentially if you're on a current support contract with Microsoft, the software is free.
Great. Okay. In terms of the product itself, how can users be assured that it's here to stay? What's the longevity of NAV? How do Microsoft see this going forward? Are they going to support it for forever?
That's a good question. It's probably driven by the fact that there's been a lot of marketing noise out there from Microsoft around what they call Dynamics 365, and there's been a lot of confusion even within the partner community about what it means for NAV. But Microsoft in November, they committed to supporting NAV going forward. And yeah, it's not a secret. It's an open website. You can go onto Microsoft.com and look for their support lifecycle. And like everything, NAV 2018 has a 5-year mainstream support cycle, and after that, it's followed by 5 years of extended support. So if you implemented NAV 2018 today, you've got 10 years support from Microsoft. Obviously, TSG would endeavour to support you after that. As we do for some clients running old versions of NAV these days. But even looking at the product roadmap as well, the committee, I can see public information saying that NAV 2019 will be released next year and NAV 2020. It might converge probably with their cloud-only offering, which is D365, but we just don't have the finalized details for that yet. But as far as NAV itself is concerned, then the longevity for me is guaranteed for the next 10 years at least.
Okay, great, thanks. Another question from the floor. If the design view is altered, does it affect all users' views, or can you tailor each individual's interface?
At the moment, it affects all users, but they are working on having that as a user-by-user change, but at the moment, it affects all users.
Okay, great. Another one. Does the postcode lookup incur additional costs, and can it be used in opportunities and jobs?
Okay, it does incur additional costs, and can it be used in opportunities and jobs? I'm going to say yes. The interface isn't there at the moment, but I'm a bit technical as well, and I've looked at how the integration's done, and it's very, very simple. So it could be a quick extension we could make for you. On the costs, I anticipated we'd have this question, so I got the website ready for it's written. The third-party web service that's used is GetAddress. The website address is getaddress.io. And we can have a look at the plans here. And the pricing is, there is a free tier, so if you're a very low user, you can do 20 calls per day, so that's 20 lookups per day, and that's free. The only pain about that is that it expires every 30 days, and you have to get a new API key every month. But, you know, if you're a low volume user, that might be worth it. But then the other tiers, if I just switch to yearly, because it's really good value, we've got 50 per day lookups, which is £20 a year. It's very cheap. 2,000 a day is 100, and 5,000 a day for 220 quid. I mean, that's 1.8 million lookups a year or something at 5,000 a day. And that's for £220. Back in the day, I used to buy the raw postcode address file from the Royal Mail, and it was thousands and thousands. And then things like Quick Address come along, and that's still expensive. But yeah, with this get address service integrated now, I think the question of is it going to be worth me paying for it is pretty much a yes now.
Cool. We'll keep those questions coming in. Just the general one then. Obviously, every year that goes by, you get a new improved version, and there are increased efficiencies, and obviously it saves people time. Do you think genuinely it's a real way of saving costs for a business by upgrading?
Well, I think the efficiencies of the platform, and especially if you're using SQL 2017 as well, then you know those performance increases will shorten the processing of some of the things that you do on a daily and monthly basis. And of course, things like that we're looking at now, the get address integration, that would be, that would bring you savings in time for processing address entry and that type of stuff. So yeah, and the other big thing as well is, I've been saying this for the last few years, that if you keep up to date with your versions of NAV, then Microsoft are promising them the upgrade cycle would be a matter of days and rather than weeks. So the software is free to you. The upgrade cycle or the upgrade effort is measured in days instead of weeks. So yeah, I think keeping up to date is good and saves you money in the long run.
Thanks, Ian. Yeah, just have one quick question. You were showing a very useful functionality earlier on to do with dimension filters, something that I've always wanted. There's also another useful feature where when you've done a filter that you can save it as a fixed line within your navigation bar. Is that exactly the same with this feature as well?
It is, yeah. You can just save that view as, and it will save the filtered view. So yeah, you can have quick access to those. You don't have to set them up each time you want to look at it.
Okay, one more question coming in. It says, can I upgrade from 2015 straight to 2018?
Well, there are, I was doing some analysis on the standard databases across the services, and between 2017 and 2018, there were 600 changed objects. So there's a lot of code changes in the system. But certainly upgrading from 2015 to 2018 is a lot simpler. Whether our tech team have to hop you through from 2015, 16, 17 to 18, that's not really something that you need to concern yourself with. I think the upgrade team will be able to perform that upgrade for you, and 2015 is not that far behind. I don't think there's a lot of table structure changes, but of course those all have to be processed to make sure that we end up with a clean and correctly formatted 2018 database.
Okay, thank you for that, Ian. Thank you for that, Ian. I had my microphone above my head. Star Wars Invader. Right, thank you for that, Ian and guys. I think that brings us towards the end. We've had some very useful questions. If there are any more questions, then please do not hesitate to contact us via the website or your account manager at any time. We're very willing and available to come along and do a demonstration and talk further about upgrades and the integration with the Office 365, etc. There will be a video posted of this on our website and perhaps emailed out within a couple of days, so you'll be able to review that again. So I want to thank you once again for all attending. Hope that was useful, and stay in touch.